I want to start off this part by looking at your formula sheet, and you'll notice this is the last section in your formula sheet, Roman numeral 3, and it is all about inferential statistics, which is what we're doing for the rest of the semester. And you'll notice here they have confidence interval, and now it's very generic. That's so it will apply to both means and proportions. And so notice it starts with our estimate. For us, that we've called it a point estimate. They just generically call it estimate. And then plus or minus. And then our critical value. So for us, that's either going to be a Z-star if we're doing proportions, or a T-star if we're doing means. We're going to add that on your notes in a second. And then the standard deviation for the estimate. So right now, our standard deviation for the estimate, notice here's a list of them, one for means and one for proportions. So for proportions, we'll be using the second one, which is our standard deviation formula. So now here's my formula for proportions. And again, we don't know the actual population parameter, so we're going to use p hat because it's all we have. We're trying to estimate the population proportion, so we certainly can't use it if we're trying to estimate it. So for lack of anything else, remember we're hoping that our p hat is actually unbiased, an unbiased estimator, and so hopefully by using that it'll get us close to our actual true value. Use p hat because it's all, that doesn't make any sense. That should say we have. And then for the means, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to use our estimate. This time it's our x bar plus or minus, and we're going to use T star. We'll talk more about why, but the little hint right now is that, again, we don't know our sigma. So, and for the same reason, we're now going to be replacing sigma with the sample standard deviation, because this is a not, so not sigma, because we don't have it. Now I want you to go to table B and notice that this is called the T distribution critical values. So in other words, this is my T star. You can see that in the image up there. And I want you to look at the bottom of it. Now in some tables they won't actually call this infinity, they'll actually call it Z star. But since this is directly off the AP test, the formula sheets for that, I want you to be familiar with that. And so notice down here at the bottom it has confidence level. So if I'm looking for Z star for 90%, I just read up and there it is. And for 95%, there it is. And for 99%, there it is. We're going to transfer these over to your notes. So the three common critical values, first of all, our critical values being either Z star or T star, are really for 90%, 95%, and 99%. And of course we saw in the chart that the Z star for 90% was 1.645, and for 95% is 1.96, and for 99% is 2.576. And the T star value depends on sample size, and if you notice in that left column it says DF. So DF stands for degrees of freedom, and we use n-1 and we look it up that way horizontally. So we'll practice that in class.